What's happening, Bills Mafia? Ryan Thomas here on the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. Joining me not once again, for the first time on the show is none other than Zac B of Bot Talks Bills and the Buffalo Fanatics. Before I get started diving into the Buffalo Bills beyond the bye, Zac and I got a lot to discuss. I just wanted to remind you all to start the show. The Thomas Take Sports Podcast is available on all major podcasting platforms, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Google Podcasts, Facebook, obviously, as well. And you can subscribe on YouTube, like on Facebook. Greatly appreciate all the love and support I've received from Bills Mafia over the last 3 months since this show, since this season started with streaming and everything like that. So, Zac, thank you so much for joining me, buddy.
Yeah, Ryan, thanks for having me. You're actually catching me in the middle of lunch. I'm enjoying my a balanced lunch, some Josh's Jacks. So it was a pleasure that you were able to fit me in during my lunch break. And I figured that, while you have me, I might as well be enjoying the official lunch, breakfast, and dinner of the Buffalo Bills.
I'm hoping that next year's Madden cover has
there it is.
Josh Allen on it. How about that?
You want to know what? It's so funny you bring that up because I just got the PS5.
Oh, wow.
And I got the digital version. And the first thing I thought of when I unwrapped it, plugged it in, decided I was going to keep it and whatever, I queued up a game of Madden and I thought to myself, wait a minute. If Josh Allen is on the cover of Madden next year, this console doesn't have a game slot. I got to get it on digital. And then I thought to myself, you want to know what I'm going to do? I'm going to buy the game, never open it, and I'm going to put it in my collectibles like I do with all the stuff behind me. And I just thought to myself, that's what it's going to come to. I'm not even going to play the game. I'm just going to sit in its case.
The game will retain its value, though, right? With it in the case, it'll be like a genuine copy, so to speak, right?
I am going to treat it as an investment, just like I do with my Josh's Jacks.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So on the show today, we're going to be diving into the Buffalo Bills beyond the bye, as I mentioned, to start the show. Folks, I also want to remind you, any comments, in regards to this past week's game or anything Buffalo Bills related, Zac and myself will get to those comments at the end of the show. But Zac, unfortunately, I have to address what is referred to as the elephant in the room, and that is the Buffalo Bills Hail Mary loss in a game that I billed as the dual threat duel between Kyler Murray and Josh Allen. The game was as advertised, right? It was a great game, the dual threat duel between two of the most electrifying quarterbacks, right? What did you think of just the game in and of itself? Before we get into the ending of the game, what did you think of just the entertainment value that the dual threat duel posed for us?
Bias aside, that was the game of the year. That was the game of the year thus far. If you factor in everything that happened in that game, the fact that, the Bills take a wide lead, and of course, third quarter Bills, they give it up. I mean, the point differential in the third quarter this year is unlike anything I've ever seen. They allow the Cardinals to get right back in it. The Bills have nothing on offense in the second half. But like they do almost every time they get in this situation, the Bills find a way to get the lead late in the fourth. You think it's over. And we lose sight of the fact that if Stefon Diggs' touchdown would have been the game winner, I mean, that would have been Allen's 12th game-winning drive. That would be the most since he's entered the league in the entire NFL. So you have that aspect of it, right? But then you have Kyler Murray on the other side. He's running right into the MVP race as of right now. And he pulls off what I think might be the greatest play in the history of the NFL. Just if you look at the way that play went down on every angle, everything surrounding it, it was one of the greatest plays I had ever seen. But not only do you have all of that happening, it was a great game altogether. There was turnovers on both sides of the ball. It was entertaining throughout the game. I mean, even the kicks were entertaining. We have Tyler Bass breaking 3 personal records in one quarter. He's the only kicker in NFL history to have 3 50-plus yard field goals in a single quarter. This is a guy people wanted to run out of Buffalo a couple of weeks back. But going into this game, the hype I had for it, the game met the expectation. I think Kyler Murray is a young and up-and-coming Russell Wilson. He's one of the most entertaining players to watch in the league. I think Josh Allen is in the top 3. As far as entertainment value is concerned, I don't think it gets better than Kyler Murray, Josh Allen, Derrick Henry, and like DK Metcalf. I mean, they're really setting the bar for entertainment value, and Kyler Murray and Josh Allen both delivered. And I mean, if you needed any more evidence, they both had a game-winning drive. I mean, how many games do you see with 2 minutes left, both quarterbacks who are potential MVP candidates have game-winning drives, just happen to go the Cardinals' way?
I think league-wide, everyone, rooting interest aside, as you said, bias aside, everyone looked at this game and thought, this is going to be a sneaky, entertaining game. This is going to be one that we need to tune in to see. And it delivered, I thought, and it made me think, looking into the future, both Allen and Murray got to be two of the best quarterbacks in this league for many years two of the best for many years to come. I mean, the way both of these guys just went drive for drive with one another, although the Bills had a 23-9 lead, you could tell that the Cardinals with Kyler Murray, they were never really out of it. They were clawing their way in, just scratching and clawing their way back into it. And I really thought too that overall, I know it's a really tough loss, but now that we're a few days removed from it, we can honestly say it was a great game. Both teams showed up. Both teams went to war with one another.
Dude, I don't know, man. I mean, obviously it was a great game. And what I said on my show the other day was that ending was so great. I wish it was against anybody else but the Bills so I could enjoy it. Right. Everybody else in the NFL outside of, think about it, 31 other fan bases get to enjoy that play and that ending but us. That's just the way it goes, unfortunately. The game was incredible. And I think that similar to the Houston Texans playoff game last year, another incredible game. But I will never remember anything outside of the double-ended missed sack. I will never remember anything outside of this game other than the Hail Mary. And it's unfortunate because,
it was such a great game.
It was such a great game, and it ended the way it did. I mean, something like that hasn't happened in 5 years. The improbability of it, I'm never going to get over it. I am sincerely never going to get over it. It was one of those things. I woke up the next day, and I just think there's very few moments in life where you genuinely don't believe something actually happened, and that's how I felt. I could not believe that happened. But at the same time, I absolutely could believe it. And when I was watching that game, when it was all unfolding, I told my dad, me and my dad watch every single game together. And me and
my dad were watching it too. Yeah.
Oh, I love it, man. And we got, I don't know about you guys, but we're absolutely insane. I mean, if we had a hidden camera, I don't know, we'd probably get escorted to some facility, but maybe it's the pessimistic Bills fan in me, at least, because it's prevalent a lot of the time. Mm-hmm. I never felt that game was over, even with 34 seconds left and the lead. There's something about, like we're talking about, something like a quality in Russell Wilson, in Kyler Murray, in Aaron Rodgers. There's very few quarterbacks that you don't believe the game is over till it's over. Kyler Murray, to me, with the explosiveness that he's able to display and the skill set that he has that varies all up and down in different facets, I never felt like it was over. And the way that they were moving the ball in the second half, I don't know, man. It was so odd to have the lead with 34 seconds left, having the Cardinals needing to go the full field and never feeling like it was over.
We touched on, you kind of touched on some of the losses and how this loss made you feel. And I have a question for you, and I have an answer for it in my own way. But we as Bills fans, it's like there's the whole saying, nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills, right? But nobody loses in the same fashion. Like the Buffalo Bills, I feel they are notorious for these losses that are just so heart-wrenching and just so it was a real, for lack of a better term, it was a nut punch watching that Hail Mary. I mean, it felt like,
dude, it was like a vasectomy, man. It was like a vasectomy. It was.
I woke up the next morning and I was treating everyone horribly. Like it just put me in a really bad mood.
My interpersonal relationships after a Bills loss are brutal. I mean, it's something you couldn't work out with. I don't speak. I don't move. I don't. Like my buddy called, like everybody loves it. Everybody loves when that stuff happens to me as a Bills fan. They love it. Like, the first thing they think of is what's Bach got to say. So my best buddy, I get a call, 10 seconds later, I hit decline, calls me again. I hit decline. I messaged him back. All I said was, nope, period.
Yeah,
no way. It's not going to happen. But you're right. What I've been doing the past couple of days, I've been finding it as a coping mechanism. I've been making a bunch of memes about the ending there because you can make a million of them. Mm-hmm. And when I was sharing it with a couple of the guys, the sad conclusion that we came to, you could insert about 10 different scenarios off the top of your head that would fit the meme just the same as the final play in the Cardinals game. That's how many scenarios have gone against the Bills. The Stevie Johnson drop touchdown against the Steelers, the missed double sack last year against Houston. I mean, there's so many things. Obviously, back in the day, the wide right, the Music City Miracle, you could drum up a million different things, and it's one of those things that leads you to the conclusion. And I said this on my show the other day. It's one of those endings that, as a Bills fan, the first thing you think of is only the Bills.
Yeah, only in Buffalo. This would only happen to Buffalo. This would only happen to Buffalo Bills fans.
Yep.
And, in terms of the question, where does this Hail Mary loss to the Cardinals rank among the worst in recent memory? I can go back to 2007, I believe, was the season where the Buffalo Bills are playing the Dallas Cowboys on Monday Night Football. They're going up against Wade Phillips, the hot shot, Tony Romo, the new kid on the block, Tony Romo at the time, Terrell Owens before he was in Buffalo, obviously. And here we come with, Trent Edwards, and, we're kind of just plodding along in kind of weird fashion as the Bills did throughout those Dick Drawn years, 7-9, teetering on the contender, sphere, I guess you could say.
Sure.
And that game was one of the most exciting games that I can remember still to this day. I remember it vividly. 5 turnovers they forced from Tony Romo, and they still found a way to lose that game off of a Nick Folk field goal. That one ranks up there, but this is pretty close to that. For me, like, as far as the ability that this team had to close this one out. On my show Sunday night, post-game show, I want your take on this too. 23-9, they had the lead in this game, and in the blink of an eye, it was 26-23. That's the Kyler Murray magic that you referred to. But where do you think Buffalo went wrong, that allowed the Arizona Cardinals to really get those drives and to make those points a reality?
It's where they've gone wrong in every game, right? And it's the third quarter. Their point differential in the third quarter is minus 54. They're plus in every single other quarter in the game throughout the season. I don't know what it is. There were numerous beat reporters that asked both Josh Allen and Sean McDermott after the game, basically, what goes on in the third quarter? I think it's a healthy mixture of a lack of game plan adjustments at half, and it's a lack of execution. The thing of it is, they're capable of doing it because in the third quarter, Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals, who couldn't do anything in regards to scoring in the first half, were moving the ball with ease. All of a sudden, the fourth quarter rolls along, and the Bills get 3 unbelievable stops, ones that you did not think they were going to be capable of doing after watching the third quarter. The capability is there. The adjustments are there. Why aren't they carried out in the third quarter? We have seen this time and time again throughout the season. There's only 1 or 2 games throughout the year where the Bills have won the third quarter. They even lost to the Jets in the third quarter in both games. There's something about the third quarter that is an absolute Achilles heel to this team. If you're going to want to win a game in the playoffs, if we're going to want to go deeper into the seeding towards the end of the year, that out of almost anything else has to be addressed, because when you're leading at half and is just as quickly give up that lead, because think about it, the Bills would not have scored again had they had not gotten that fumble, which was basically a gift. I do not know how that fumble occurred. The ball was never hit. The ball basically just popped out. The Bills were gifted the ball in the red zone. You got to think, if that ball never went in the Bills' favor, do they even score in the third quarter and keep it close?
17-7 in that quarter. Yeah, 17-7. Yep.
Exactly. And when you give up 9 points and a half to 17 in a single quarter, and it's not like it's the first quarter, second quarter, fourth quarter. The trend is the same every game. It's the third quarter, and based on Sean McDermott and Josh Allen's answers, which knowing them, they're always status quo answers. Right. There really doesn't seem to be much of an answer. There's no.
It's not even a status. Yeah, it's not even a status quo answer that they provide. They don't even have a status quo answer to the question, which is more disturbing. And You know, I don't know which side of the ball. I mean, it's a team game. Football's a team game.
Yep.
You probably played, back in the day, as did I.
I did, yeah.
So, do you blame the offensive side of the ball for shortening some of these drives, throwing the ball out in the fourth or in the third and fourth quarter, or do you blame the adjustments that the opposing team can make? It seems like every single week the opposing offense can make the adjustments on our defense beyond the first half. I mean, is it both? What would you say?
It's a dash of both, but I lean more towards blaming the offense because what did we see in the first half? They scored on every single possession, whether it was a field goal or not. They were moving the ball with relative ease. When you're playing, look, in the NFL nowadays, if you're playing damn near anybody outside of the Jets and the Jaguars, you're going to probably expect to give up 30 points, especially if you're playing against an MVP caliber quarterback. You knew going into that game, the Bills were going to have to score 30 plus in order to win. It just so happens that they do score 30, and it's the only game this season where they lose scoring 30 or more. But I have to blame the offense here because, look, the Bills held those Cardinals, who we all expected to probably score in the 30s, to 9 points at half, and you weren't going to contain Kyler Murray all game. That is next to impossible. They contained him for 3 out of the 4 quarters. He went off in the third. It happens. You knew that they were going to score eventually, but the Bills did nothing but turn the ball over and punt the ball in the second half up until the potential game-winning drive. And even look at what the Bills D had done to give the Bills a position to go back and take the lead. You have Jordan Poyer's interception. Josh Allen throws a pick a play or two later. So to me, that one was definitely on the offense because they're the ones who had the momentum going into half, and they completely lost it.
I completely agree, and it kind of goes back to the whole one of the first games that pops into my mind. The Atlanta Falcons have a 28-3 lead in the Super Bowl, and I'm wondering why the hell is Matt Ryan dropping back to throw on 2nd and 4? And I'm saying the same thing last week. Why the hell is Josh Allen dropping back to pass on 2nd and 4 after the defense found a way to stop one of the most electrifying quarterbacks in the league finally in the second half? There was a little bit of that where it goes to the whole statistic that is, I think, the most eye-popping stat of this game this past Sunday. 35 total rushing yards combined for Zach Moss and Devin Singletary. Bills have the 29th ranked run game in the National Football League. And bottom 4 rushing attack. You're in there with the Bears. You have the Field Yateses and the Matthew Berrys of the world for fantasy football purposes saying there isn't a soul on the Chicago Bears offense outside of Allen Robinson that is worth owning for fantasy football. No. I might have to drop Devin Singletary in my fantasy league. Zach Moss, I don't know what to do with him. And what is the solution to getting this run game on track when they benched Mitch Morse this past week?
Look, man, I got the solution for you, Ryan, and it's going to be a little unorthodox. And the solution is to not run the damn ball. The reason they won the game the way they did against Seattle, what worked? Intermediate passing. Allen threw the ball over 40 times in that game. The Seahawks couldn't stop a nosebleed when it came to the Bills' offense. And what I love so much about the Seattle game, and we don't see this enough from the Bills, they didn't fix what wasn't broken. They kept going to the well, and it was working. The intermediate passing game continued to work against a weak Seattle defense. Against the Cardinals, the same thing was working. Cole Beasley is open on every single play. He should have 15 targets a game. He has some of the most sure hands in the entire league. And what did he had 11 catches in that game. Why are you running the ball off tackle on 1st down and 10 and 2nd down and 10 when you know damn well as I do sitting on the couch, that is not going to go for more than 2 yards? You are setting yourself up for 3rd and long all game long, and it bit them in the second half. What they did wrong against the Cardinals is they continued to try to force the run game in the second half when it wasn't working. Whereas just a week prior, they completely bailed on the run. It worked to perfection because they stuck to what was getting them down the field. Josh Allen, once again in this game, leading rusher. And that's been multiple games throughout the year. The run attack is so weak. It is so non-existent. it basically is at the point now. You're heading into week 11 of the NFL season. It's beyond repair. You're not going to fix that after 11 weeks of the season. It's gone. It needs to be addressed in the offseason. But what is working this year? Josh Allen throwing the ball. We will take interceptions. They happen when you throw as much as he does. But you got to remember, as weak as his deep ball is, he is one of the most accurate intermediate passers in the NFL. And Cole Beasley just so happens to be probably the best slot receiver in the NFL statistically this year. That was my biggest issue. And so to answer your question, to fix the run game, they need to bail on the run game.
I agree with you in the sense that they have to establish something in the passing game. And when they have, they've been able to stick to it. When they stick to it, it has actually been successful. I can go back to not just the Seattle game, but that first half of the Rams game prior to the debacle that was the second half of that game. They were able to stick to their guns in the first half. Second half, things got a little bit dicey, but it is very concerning for me, as you said, as we're heading into week 11, the next time the Bills play is week 12, the fact that they've had 1 week of solid running back production. If you were to take a stab, throw a dart at a dartboard and try to hit a bullseye as far as why this run game has not been successful this season, what do you think that reason is?
It's awfully confusing because I personally think that protection for Josh Allen all year has been pretty adequate. I think that it's been well enough. I mean, obviously Allen's had a career year and then some, and he's had plenty of time to throw the ball. There has been a lot of altercations on the offensive line. Brian Winters once again gets the start. They decide to healthy scratch Mitch Morse on Sunday. He was back and available. Sean McDermott said he wanted to stick with the line that worked against Seattle. Okay, but what? I mean, they can't run the ball. Now, if Mitch Morse was in the game, do they run the ball for 100 yards? No, I don't think so. You have two running backs that I think are decent, but let's be real here. Is Devin Singletary and Zach Moss true overall number one running backs? No, but I think that they're also adequate enough. It comes down to this, man. The game nowadays, unless you have a Dalvin Cook or an Alvin Kamara, I really don't think the running back is that intricate in the game plan. I mean, or Derrick Henry. I mean, among the top elite guys, the running back plays a very mediocre role in a lot of these teams' offenses. The Bills just need to find a way to establish the run to some capacity because their play action game is so good. I mean, Josh Allen in the play action department is the best quarterback in the NFL. So that is the reason you want to establish it. But the answer, I don't know if anybody has it. I mean, I certainly don't think Sean McDermott has it. If he had an answer for the run game, he would have addressed it. That's one of the things he said in his post game that they're going to focus on heavily, if not almost entirely during this bye week. But once again, I mean, Ryan, you're up to 11 weeks into the NFL season. I think as experienced and as successful as Dable and McDermott have been, I think that if that was something that really truly could have been fixed by now, it would have been.
Yeah, I agree. And in terms of Moss and Singletary, I think that they are young backs that, could potentially blossom into something. Yeah. I'm not going to pound the drum and pound my fist on the table and say, we need a brand new franchise running back. I'm not on that. I'm not on that take just yet. But I do think that the run design, the plays that are designed in terms of the running plays, the running zone running plays where you have a hodgepodge group of linemen. Winters is on the left side 1 week. He's on the right side another week. It's just been musical chairs in terms of that line. And I was just stunned that Mitch Morse was a healthy scratch. And I was a little bit flabbergasted by the explanation for it, that they wanted to go with the line that they had against Seattle, as you mentioned, and that Mitch Morse was 100% healthy. If Mitch Morse is 100% healthy, I don't see any circumstance in which he shouldn't be out on that field, personally. That blew my mind. I didn't understand that.
The Bills are in no position to healthy scratch anybody on their offensive line. It's when you watch the run game all year, and as you mentioned, it's damn near last in the league. I mean, what sense does that make? I also don't understand the love affair for Brian Winters. If you asked any fan who follows the team heavily, he's probably at the top of the list of people you don't want on the field. And I mean, what are they seeing in that regime that led them to believe that it was better to roll with that than a healthy Mitch Morse. I just don't understand it. Hopefully it was just one of those, things that they learn through trial and error. It goes that they go out, it doesn't work. But you want to know what, man, to bring it full circle, the run game at the end of the day, it really wasn't an issue. The Bills scored 30 points. They really didn't need an incredible run game in this one to get it done. And they're 11 seconds away from winning it. So the nice thing about the lack of running this season is that it really has not hurt them at all, even though they cannot run the ball very well. And as you mentioned, do I think Zach Moss and Devin Singletary are top tier guys worth starting on your fantasy or building a team around? Absolutely not. But I think that they have definitely showed, both of them in their own regard, the ability to do what you said, blossom into what we think they can be. I mean, what Devin Singletary did last year was beyond impressive. Yes. Nobody expected that out of him. And I think Zach Moss in the red zone is great. I think he's killer and punching the ball in. But I think when you have the luxury of having a guy like Josh Allen, who not only can throw the ball, with the best of them, but he's also one of the most athletic and mobile quarterbacks in the league. Look at what the Cardinals did with Kyler Murray alone. His escapability is the best I've seen. I think when you have the ability to have your quarterback run like that, the lack of run game really doesn't wind up coming to the forefront as a gigantic issue. And I don't think it's burnt the Bills too bad this season.
I think in terms of just how I look at this past week's game, like how did the Arizona Cardinals make this comeback? I go back and look at some of those drives, and I think if they were able to establish even a slight run game to drain that clock down just a little bit, it is apples and oranges in terms of how the game finished. I mean, they did come back, they did win this game only for a Hail Mary to be completed. So it is tough to nitpick that, but looking at the Bills beyond the Bills bye, I definitely have some concerns. I have some concerns. I have some critiques, I guess you could say. Where's your head at, though, as far as the Bills beyond the bye? They're 7-3 atop the AFC East, but you have the Miami Dolphins kind of nipping on their heels here at 6-3. The Patriots just beat the Baltimore Ravens Sunday night, or was it Monday night? I can't remember which one. Either way, they beat the Ravens. Yeah,
I think it was Monday night. It was awful. Monday terrible night. Game.
Yeah, I didn't want to watch it. Didn't watch it. But
it was Sunday night. You're right. That's how bad it was. I don't even remember.
I don't remember which night it was. Whatever. Sunday night. Yeah. They all blend together after a while.
They do.
They do. But I mean, where is your head at as far as this Bills team currently heading into this bye week?
Man, dude, if they could diagnose, see, I always say this, a sports fan is probably the worst mental illness you could possibly have, because I would be diagnosed with the nth degree of bipolar disorder when it comes to this Buffalo Bills team. When they were going through that stretch of the 2 losses to Kansas City and to Tennessee, and then they played very poorly, in my opinion, against the Jets and the Patriots, I was ready to say, looking at the schedule, I genuinely think that the Bills could wind up losing the majority of the rest of their games if they're going to continue to play like this. Then what do? They come out and put 44 points up against Seattle, who had been humming up into that point. Their defense plays their best game of the year. Then they take that same energy into Arizona. The defense now has 2 incredible performances against 2 of the league's best offenses. And that's something that I got to be honest with you, 8 weeks through the year, I just didn't think that the Bills defense was capable of it. They had not shown a single sign of them being able to compete with an offense with the likes of Seattle and Arizona. They've done just that. So I was pretty down on the expectations for the Bills following the Titans, Chiefs, Jets, and Patriots game. I was completely revitalized after I watched the Seahawks game. And to be honest, also the Arizona game. I mean, let's face it. They still scored 30 points. Their defense still did a hell of a job containing one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and they did a really good job of giving the offense a ton of different chances to pull away in that game. So in looking at their schedule, man, every single game is winnable, if then some. I mean, the Chargers are probably the best, worst team you could possibly play. The Chargers are 2-7. I don't think it gets better than the Chargers at that record. They have not lost a single game this year, Ryan, by more than 1 possession. Every game has been
It's so
incredibly close.
sad. I feel so bad for them, but at the
I
same
feel,
time,
oh my God. Isn't it awful? I mean, you think we got it bad, man, sometimes. I couldn't imagine doing that every week.
it's
But
terrible.
Justin Herbert, I think, deserves Rookie of the Year. I think nobody
Oh,
thought he was going to be even close to that good this quick, and nobody even thought he was going to start this year. That was Tyrod Taylor's job to lose. Unfortunately, he had some terrible circumstances happen to him to give Justin Herbert the start. He's been playing fantastic, but that's a beyond winnable game, and I think the Bills do win that game. The 49ers are banged up. They are not even a quarter of the team they were last year. Garoppolo will be back, but in all honesty, I kind of prefer it. I mean, he's been playing lackluster ball, and this is his last year in San Francisco anyways. I don't think he even cares at this point. So it seems, and I really don't think that Shanahan cares much about getting him playing better at all. They're not making the playoffs, so they want a better draft pick, and they want their stock for Jimmy G to go up. Even the Steelers, man, the Steelers are undefeated. Do they feel undefeated to you? Nobody even has them number one in their power rankings. If the Chiefs played them today, the Chiefs beat them. They should have lost to a Cowboys team that I swear to God, I already forgot the name of the quarterback that played that day. It was that bad.
I honestly don't know who he is either.
No, it was, dude, they were picking guys
Gilbert?
up at the
Sunoco. Gilbert? Gilbert? I don't know.
They were driving down Main Street in Dallas trying to find somebody who looked athletic enough to go take the snaps. The Steelers should have lost. I truly believe that the Bills at home in prime time will beat the Steelers that night. I'm not kidding you, Ryan. It could go a million different ways. I really could see the Bills running the table. If they play the way that they played the last 2 weeks, they could run the table. The Broncos, the Chargers, and the Patriots are three real easy teams. And I know everybody's trying to focus on, well, Miami's got the easiest remaining schedule. Look at the Bills' schedule. It is just as easy. You just swap the Bills
schedule. It's just a different order.
Exactly. And the Dolphins play the Chiefs, and the Bills play the Steelers. So those are like the two big games for each team. I gotta admit, though, I really, in classic Bills fashion, just the way things go, can genuinely see the AFC East coming down to week 17 against Miami. But if it does, you got to remember this. It would suck to lose the division to Miami, and I truly do not foresee it. But even if the Bills lost that game, they still play Miami in the playoffs the next week. It's just in Miami instead of Buffalo. And this year with no fans, I got to be honest with you, as weird as this sounds, I'd almost rather have the first Bills home playoff game be when I can go to the game. So if that wound up happening, the Bills already won in Miami this year. I wouldn't mind it. There's nothing that's going to happen the rest of the year for the Bills to miss the playoffs. Ryan, I really could see him going anywhere from 14-2 to 12-4. In looking at this schedule, I can't imagine they go any worse than 11-5. What do you think, though, in looking at it?
When looking at it, I do see the Chargers as a much better team than their record. As you stated, they've lost all their games by one possession. Justin Herbert, that's a guy that I was thinking that Miami, if they were to pass on Tua, they weren't going to get Burrow. They wouldn't have went wrong getting Herbert. And I ended up being somewhat right about that. I'm happy to carry that torch. Chargers defense, pretty solid, nice front seven. You got some pieces on the defensive line. You have some ability there to put pressure on Josh Allen. But all in all, I think that will be a win for Buffalo, and that puts them back in Orchard Park as well versus the Chargers. Not that it matters without fans, but I think Buffalo needs that deep breath kind of. They need to be at ease after this crushing loss, and to go back to Orchard Park and to play another game in 2 weeks, to have an extra week to prepare for a team that's 2-7. I think that is a winnable game. San Francisco, on the other hand, they're 4-6. Do they get healthier these next couple weeks? Does that pose a problem for us if they are healthier in the next couple weeks than what they were, these last few weeks? George Kittle's not coming back either way. So, that's nice that Buffalo doesn't have to, go up against him. But the Steelers, man, the Steelers game is the one out of these next few that I'm looking at thinking it's a tough one. I think it's doable. If there's any team that could beat the Steelers, it is the Ravens, the Chiefs, and the Bills. Titans were this close. They missed a Gostkowski field goal. But I think the Bills could pull that off. Big Ben versus Josh Allen. It's literally Big Ben of past Big Ben and present day Big Ben, I think, in terms of Josh Allen and comparing both Allen and Roethlisberger. And maybe that one's a loss. Maybe we say that is a loss just for the heck of it. But Denver, Drew Lock has been very, very streaky, very inconsistent.
He's hurt
Uh,
too.
yeah, I think Denver is going to be looking at getting a quarterback via trade in the offseason, or maybe they sign somebody depending on who's available, or maybe they try to trade up for Trevor Lawrence. I don't know, but I just don't know if Drew Lock is really the answer for them. The Patriots are always tough. They're always a stingy team for us. And then Miami has this youth movement that I think they're a little bit ahead of schedule. But let's be honest, with all due respect to the Bills of 2017, I'm seeing a lot of similarities between the Miami Dolphins of 2020 and the Bills of 2017.
Yeah.
Quarterback that's very conservative, doesn't really want to stretch the field, doesn't really want to make that mistake. And Miami is a defensive team. Brian Flores is a defensive-minded coach. They invested a lot of money on the defensive side of the ball. So I see 4 wins here. I see them beating the Chargers, the 49ers, the Broncos, and the Dolphins. The 2 games that actually worry me, for whatever reason, Bill Belichick just seems to have the X's and O's still firing, no matter how talentless this team is in New England, and they're pretty bad. I mean, I think they're worse than 4-5 on paper. I don't think Cam Newton was the answer for them. He's been streaky at best. But Bill Belichick just seems to find a way against these Buffalo Bills to make it a game. So I'm just going to say, for the heck of it, the Steelers and the Patriots are the 2 games that I'm a little bit worried about. That could possibly be losses. Steelers more so than the Patriots, and then the Chargers, 49ers, Broncos, and Dolphins, I think, are games that they can win.
It's funny. Even with as bad as the Patriots are, it is hard to imagine a world where the Bills sweep them in any capacity. I mean,
Right.
It really is tough to think about. And that game is primetime in New England. And I totally agree with you. When I did my preseason predictions, and I thought the Patriots were going to be bad. I didn't think they were going to be this bad, but I still gave the Bills a loss in this game just simply due to the fact that I find it tough to believe that the Bills could sweep them no matter what the talent level is in New England. If the Bills do that, and I really do not care how bad the Patriots are, if the Bills sweep the Patriots this year, I mean, it's over. Like, stick a fork in it. It's the Bills division. Not that it isn't already. And I truly believe that, but I think that how after all these years, and I mean almost 2 decades, man, if you can find a way to sweep New England, especially doing it in what could be a massive game, and it probably will be a massive game for playoff implications, in a primetime slot, it would be massive. Now we're looking at the schedule as well. 6 games left, 3 of them are primetime, and as good as the Bills were in primetime last year, 2 primetime games this year, 2 big old L's. So I don't get worried about it necessarily, but the Bills had 2 primetime games against the Chiefs and the Titans, and that just so happened to be their 2 worst games of the year by far. The biggest key here, man, it's getting a win over the Chargers. These guys, I mean, I don't even know how they're sleeping right now. You go into the bye with that happening to you, and you got to sit on that for 2 weeks. I mean, me as a fan, man, I'm barely sleeping. I don't know what the hell they got going on. Josh Allen shaved his mustache, so he means business going the rest of the year.
I got to say, I know I'm going to get crap for this. I'm so thankful he shaved. I really am. I thought the scruff was getting a little too gungy, kind of around the chin area. Like it was kind of hanging and loose. See, like yours is kind of tight to the chin. When I grow mine out, it's tight to the chin. Josh's was all scraggly and he had like neck hairs, and I was like, you can shave that, man. You can be fresh face, baby face Josh Allen again. We liked that guy as a rookie, right?
Sometimes it's tough to remember that he's younger than I am. Like, it's tough to remember that. Sometimes, you know what I mean?
It really is. It puts things in perspective for sure.
I look at that though, and I'm like, I don't think that was a coincidence. He kept that around for weeks. I literally think he was like, it's game on. Like, we're reinventing after the bye. And the Chargers game, in looking at this schedule, I genuinely believe it is one of the tougher games, not only because I think the Chargers are a very solid team despite their record, but I also think that the Bills are going to have to find a way to not beat themselves in this game too. Are they going to carry over what just happened 2 weeks removed into this game? We saw what happened when the Bills played the Titans. They genuinely carried that terrible performance into the Chiefs game, and it kind of trickled down into the Jets and Patriots games too. They really didn't get it back on track until last week. So we know this team can be very streaky. Let's hope that that game does not lead into a streak of what we've seen, throughout October, which was, pretty mediocre football.
And I think obviously the bye is always a chance to get healthy, but when looking at the Bills roster and seeing that, Josh Norman was on the COVID list. You had Levi Wallace on the COVID list, I believe, and then Dane Jackson, who played so well for the Bills prior to getting hurt in that Arizona game.
Yes.
I definitely think that played a factor as that game, wound down, and we had what was it, Worley, who they just picked up via waivers, who, he's just he's not accustomed to this team yet. How can you expect a guy thrown in there, whether you can debate the talent level or lack thereof all day long, but just in terms of the situation, just being thrown in there against the Arizona Cardinals and the Chargers, almost said San Diego, the Chargers, LA Chargers, have a lot of weapons on this offense. And Austin Eckler, will he be out there? Maybe. They're still kind of, waiting that out. This is a tricky offense. And I will give a shout out to former Buffalo Bills interim head coach Anthony Lynn. He's a great coach, great play caller, very smart. I think he has worked wonders for Justin Herbert, not really throwing a whole lot at him, kind of letting Herbert kind of lead the offense his way. That's what I've seen, at least, from the Chargers these last few weeks.
Yeah, and I watched Hard Knocks this offseason, watching Anthony Lynn. I mean, he seems like a great leader of men. He gets a lot of respect. When the unfortunate civil rights things were happening throughout our country over the summer, Anthony Lynn handled it, I think, better than anybody else in the league did. He had a nationally televised scrimmage, and they took a stand on national TV, and he really was the driving force behind that. I think he's a great coach, a great leader, and a great guy. He seems like one of the more genuinely nice people throughout the league. And as you mentioned, he's a former Bill, and I think he got a lot of love in Buffalo for a decent amount of time when he was there. And I think that for what he's done with what he's had for this Chargers team, I mean, Ryan, they're a couple ball flips away from maybe being a playoff team with the new playoff structure. So, I mean, 2-7 it's honestly unbelievable that they're 2-7. I mean, there are so many games. I mean, look at the Raiders game, right? They had two opportunities that were balls dropped on the 1 yard line. I mean, these guys,
unreal.
They're snake bitten. I mean, it really seems like it. So hopefully that they keep that curse going in against the Bills. But I think that in looking at that game, the biggest thing that stands out to me is going to be, will the Bills find a way to put what happened last week in the rear view? And also, back to your point about being healthy, how much of a difference is it going to make when we have our starting corner situation back and figured out? And I think Matt Milano should be making his way back into the lineup next week. And John Brown, who truthfully has not been healthy in weeks, if we can give him 2 weeks to kick his leg up and really not put much on it, because this offense is nothing without John Brown on the field. As insane as it sounds, with the weapons the Bills have, when John Brown is not on the field, they literally cannot move the ball.
Yeah, it's astounding how pivotal he is to their offense, just out on the field. Like, you don't even have to target him. Just knowing that he's out there for an opposing defense to have to go against a guy that can stretch the field like that without him on this offense. It's Diggs, Beasley, two guys that can run every route, but Beasley's more of a slot guy, obviously. I agree with you 100%. I mean, you literally saw their offense kind of sputter for a few weeks without John Brown.
And without John Brown, how are they going to run the same screenplay 4 times every game, too? You know what I mean?
Without John Brown, they're sure not going to run the ball. They couldn't run the ball with John Brown. Man.
I mean, that's I don't think that the bye week could have come at any better time. I mean, this team needs a rest more than they could even know. And when you have a practice squad guy starting a corner with a team that has DeAndre Hopkins on it, I mean, it's
Christian
like,
Kirk, Andy
yes,
Isabella. I mean, yeah,
the
it's
Cardinals are loaded,
unreal.
man. They're going to be good for
Yeah,
a long time on offense. And I thought the Bills, with what they had, I mean, it was pretty impressive what they were able to do on defense despite the limitations. But your point is absolutely probably the biggest of them all when it comes to the bye week. It's getting healthy, and if they are able to do so and maintain that health throughout the year, man, the Bills are capable of beating absolutely anybody. It would
right.
not blow my mind if they ran the table, but I like where you, man, two losses sounds about right. Whether they come to one of those primetime games, it's tough to win all those primetime games against, teams that are solid at the least. But dude, I mean, 12-4, that would be the best record of my lifetime, and I would literally do anything to have it. So if that's the case, then I'm more than happy with it.
Yeah, I mean, I could say it's the best record of my lifetime too, thinking, in terms of my memory bank, they did
Yeah,
go 12-4 during the Super Bowl years, but for a guy that's 28 years old, I can't even count the Super Bowl years because I wasn't really there. I was
totally.
I was with my binky, rolling around on the
Yeah,
floor. You know what I mean? You can't really look at that, right?
I
But
don't count that. Yeah.
yeah, it is what it is. We've been through some pain and misery. We had a 17-year playoff drought. We had a lot of. I went through this episode. It was from Kelly to Allen. It talked about all the quarterbacks we have had, from Jim Kelly to Josh Allen, and it made me remember. It surprised me how much stuff I had forgotten in regards to like the Dick Duran era, the Doug Marones,
Well,
Chan
because it was
Gailey.
so forgettable, right?
Right. I didn't want to remember it. But
Yeah.
then I remembered other things like from that time. I'm in high school thinking, oh, maybe this is the year they make the playoffs. They went 7-9 last year, only for them to go 7-9, 7-9.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But I have a hot take in regards to this current Buffalo Bills team. And in
Let's hear it.
terms of, a move that they made. When going back and looking at those quarterbacks and looking at those old teams of years past, and some of the acquisitions that we have seen. The Bills, brought in Mario Williams. They brought in Drew Bledsoe. They've made some moves here and there throughout the years. Terrell Owens. Hot take of the show, and I want your take on this. Just going into your memory bank here. The hot take is that I believe
I knew you were going to say this. Yes.
Stefon Diggs is the best acquisition the Bills have made, at least in the last 10 years. I said 10 years being generous. 10 years is 2010. I'm going to say maybe even 20. I'm going to say maybe even 20. In 20 years, I can't remember an acquisition that the Bills made that made this much of an impact each and every single week. Never a down week, always a steady cog in the lineup. He did have one week that was a little quiet, but his lowest week in terms of fantasy football in my league, 10 points, not great, but not horrible. What do you say to that in
For
terms of?
starters, I knew you were going there and I loved it because it is what I have been drilling home to the listeners all year. It's not even close, Ryan. It's not even close. I told my buddies the other day, and I'm not kidding, if he just hung the cleats up after this year, I would still repeat this same argument because of what he has done to this team in comparison to what they were capable of doing on offense last year, to what they're capable of doing on offense this year. The Bills have not had a bona fide stud at the wide receiver position, maybe in my entire life. And when I say like stud, I mean like top tier, elite, cream of the crop wide receiver talent. He's not only that, he is the number one wide receiver in the NFL right now. And there were so many questions surrounding, oh, you're coming from Kirk Cousins to Josh Allen. That was the big knock. Stefon Diggs is going to take a huge decline in production. No, it's only gone up. It was a fantastic trade for both sides because Justin Jefferson looks really good in Minnesota, but the move was so fantastic by the McBean regime because there was no ability for the Bills to take a risk at the wide receiver position in the draft. They needed to address it, and they needed to address it ASAP. They went out and got what I think was a very fair trade. I would say the Bills won the trade by far because the production value of Diggs was already proven and known. You didn't know what Justin Jefferson was going to be capable of doing. He comes in, he completely alters this team. He is the most productive wide receiver in the NFL. Like you mentioned, the lowest point total he had in fantasy this year was 10. He is the only wide receiver in the NFL to not go below double digits at least once this whole year. So every game he's averaged 10 or more. He catches everything that comes his way. And I think that what does that do not only for him and his production? Cole Beasley's open every single play. John Brown, it was a major factor last year. He's now a similar factor in a much different role, which I think he suits better in. I don't think John Brown should be your wide receiver one. Obviously, we saw that he's capable of it, but you'd much rather have him at a wide receiver 2 position with a guy like Beasley running open all over the place in the intermediate game. But to answer your question, man, I don't even think it comes close. As far as blockbusters are concerned, I'll never forget where I was when T.O. got signed, and I'll never forget where I was when LaShawn McCoy got signed. But when Shady got signed, as many good years as he gave for the Bills, did it really revolutionize the Bills as far as their offense and their ability to score was concerned? No, I love Shady. I love T.O., but it does not come close. Stefon Diggs is by far the best acquisition the Bills have had probably in my entire life.
And there was so much chatter about, well, why did he want to leave Minnesota? Yep. And I go back to, I'm flipping through Instagram on the reels, and Kirk Cousins, it didn't take him too long to throw an interception in one of these games a couple weeks back. And Justin Jefferson was the intended receiver. And Justin Jefferson kind of giggled, like jokingly, ran over to Kirk Cousins and said, didn't take you too long. And Kirk Cousins was just like, oh, shit. Whereas Stefon Diggs is one of those emotional players. He's a vocal guy in the sense that he likes to rile his teammates up. We saw that last week. He gets that touchdown. He was in everyone's face saying, let's go.
Me. Yeah.
That's why they pay me. I just did that. That just happened. And the Bills have needed a wide receiver like that, and a wide receiver at that is on a steady rise up. Yeah. His skills are only getting better. T.O. was a little bit long in the tooth at that time. Yeah. Some of the guys that we've had along the last 20 years, Peerless Price, Eric Moulds, those were our guys. When have we acquired a wide receiver in the last 20 years that was this crucial to the success of our team?
Wait, you mean to tell me it's not Kelvin Benjamin? I'm shocked you didn't. I'm shocked that wasn't your number one.
Oh my God. I think Kelvin Benjamin, I don't know where he is right now, but I guarantee you he's not at his playing weight.
Well, according to Booger McFarland, I think he's back at working at Popeyes. Isn't that what Booger McFarland said back on Monday Night Football?
He did.
You know what? The point you made, though, Ryan, I liked it a lot because it's an underrated point. The media wants to drill home how certain guys are locker room cancers, and they define them by that, and they can't wait for them to slip up so that it can be a story, but they never address it when it's not an issue at all.
Right.
People thought Stefon Diggs was going to come into a very healthy Bills culture. I would argue the Bills have one of the best cultures and best locker rooms in the entire NFL. And a lot of people thought that bringing Stefon Diggs in with the questions that you had mentioned surrounding him in Minnesota was going to be an issue. It has not only not been an issue, he has been a fantastic leader on this team, and that has resulted in not only making the offense as good as it has resulted in him being the best wide receiver in the NFL up until this point. And I think that's a very underrated aspect of this acquisition. Everybody wanted him to be an issue with Josh Allen. It's been anything but. Nobody addresses that at all.
And Michael Gervais says since Andre Reed, they drafted Andre Reed in the 4th round. That's one of the greatest draft picks of all time in terms of Bills history. That's one of the best ever, obviously. Sure. But in terms of acquiring a player, when have the Bills, the last 20 years or 15 years prior to Brandon Beane, when did they even make a good trade for an offensive outside of the McCoy deal? I mean, very few and far between. There was some really bad drafting the last 20 years or 15 years prior to Beane, I should say. And I can't say enough about the guy. He has been everything that you could imagine that the Bills acquired this offseason in terms of coming in, being a wide receiver 1, making Josh Allen better. Josh Allen doesn't have the season that he has right now, that he has had right now, unless you get a Stefon Diggs type player. And I mean,
you know what, man, you
iron sharpens iron.
Yeah, you could argue the greatest acquisition for the Bills over the last 20 years, though, is Brandon Beane. I mean, this team has not been they achieved what they had been trying to achieve for about 20 years in about 3 years under Brandon Beane. And what he has been able to do, like you just mentioned, name me one trade that was a really good, even, solid move for the Bills prior to him. He's come in and done numerous moves and numerous acquisitions that have completely revitalized the organization. It's unbelievable what he's been able to do, and the Stefon Diggs move is just one more feather in his cap in regards to what he has been able to do towards the succeeding, or whatever I'm trying to say, towards the success of the Buffalo Bills. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And in terms of, you kind of touched on, they traded that first-round pick to Minnesota. They traded a couple mid-round picks too. Let's be honest, this team is so talent rich. I don't think many of those mid-round guys would make the team anyway.
Yeah.
In terms of the trajectory that this team is on, as well. I believe the Bills front office wanted to get someone that they knew what he brought to the table. They wanted to get someone that was established as one of the up-and-coming receivers in the league, one of the best receivers in the league, frankly, one of the best, outside of DeAndre Hopkins, contested ball-catching receivers in the league, and one of those guys that I believe they knew what they were getting. They didn't want to go back to the well of a rookie wide receiver draft class. Albeit it was a loaded one. Would I have liked Chase Claypool? Yes. But Chase Claypool mixed with John Brown, mixed with maybe they don't draft Gabe Davis, mixed with, Cole Beasley. It just doesn't fit the way that this core fits. And I think they have one of the best wide receiver cores in the league.
How about the point you just made? We're talking about Beasley, Brown, and Diggs. Who gets lost in the crosshairs here? It's Andre Roberts. Sorry, not Andre Roberts. Gabe Davis. Davis. What a year! I mean, he's had some incredible plays. He pretty much won the game for the Bills against the Dolphins with that unbelievable catch. I mean, like you just said, it's talent rich. The one place that needs to be addressed and needs to be addressed ASAP is the tight end position. The Bills just can't seem to get it figured out. I really thought there was promise with Dawson Knox, but boy, has he regressed this season. I was really hoping that Dawson Knox was going to fit that role. You just see how much better teams are when they have an elite tight end. There's not a ton of them throughout the league, but every team who has one, their offense is next level. I mean, really think about it. Every team that has a legitimate top-tier tight end, and I know they're hard to come by, but the Bills need to find one that's at least a threat. And right now, they really don't seem to have the answer for that. But the nice thing is that's kind of overshadowed with the incredible wide receiver talent that they do have.
I really expected more out of the combination, I guess you could say, of Knox and Croft.
Yeah.
And, Croft has shown some decent things when healthy. It seems like there's always that caveat to anything with Tyler Croft, though, when healthy. When healthy is this, when healthy. Same with Dawson Knox. And I'd like to see at some point both of those guys at 100% and see what they could do. I know that right now they're deemed 100%, but the tight end position just isn't really as featured in this offense, I think, as it is maybe in Kansas City or Baltimore or, other places. But I do think if they had a better option at that position, it would be a more featured position. There's just certain things that they have one guy that can do one thing in Croft and another guy that can do the complete opposite in Knox. If they had one guy that could just do both of those things, it would be nice. As well as Lee Smith not jumping off sides. That would help. That hasn't happened in a bit, but it's still locked in my memory.
And it's like Dawson Knox, man. You'd be making the play of the game, just not shoving a dude in the back. Like that's all we're really asking. You don't need to be Travis Kelce. No one's asking for that. Just stop hindering the team. Don't be a roadblock. You don't have to be a Hall of Famer, but don't be a roadblock. That's what he was on Sunday. Who knows what the difference would have been if the Bills in that play with Singletary would have stand. They would have been driving. They stalled after that block in the back. Who knows? So the tight end problem is definitely one I think that would be probably at the top of the areas that need adjustment in the offseason. I got a question for you, though, because this kind of reminded me of something that it's kind of a similar situation, and you mentioned when healthy. And then the first person I think of when that statement comes up is Matt Milano. He could be one of the best linebackers in the entire NFL when healthy. Unfortunately, when's the last time he was fully healthy? Going into the offseason, contract year, what are you doing with Matt Milano, and do you justify paying him despite all of the injury issues that he's had? It's a really tough decision.
Well, I would say that is the big question of this Buffalo Bills team, Matt Milano, in terms of what you do with him in the future. That's kind of staring them in the face. It's been staring them in the face prior to this season, even starting. Wondering would the Bills extend him, and the best ability to me in a player is availability. And if you're in a contract year and you can't really make your way into the lineup, it's unfortunate. Injuries happen. This is not, checkers. It's football. It's a tough game. The players are only going to continue to get hurt more as the season wears on. But I think in terms of other outside linebackers that have been in contract years, what they have contributed to their team in that contract year, they have then been able to demand the contract that they deserve. Unfortunately, I'm not saying Matt Milano isn't a good enough player to demand a contract, but Matt Milano hasn't been playing. So how can you demand a contract of 11, 12 million a year as an outside linebacker when in your contract year you weren't available for the team to play?
Yeah.
It's very, very tough. And
it is.
I would hate for them to lose Matt Milano because of what he has done for this team. And the fact that they did pick him in the 5th round, you essentially groomed a 5th round linebacker to go play on another team. The thought of that,
point. Yeah.
I hate that thought. And it's a thought that I wouldn't be able to get out of my head because it'd be the reality of the situation if he does walk out the door. I think Matt Milano's got to be a little bit realistic, and I think he's got to allow the Bills to kind of negotiate his contract at the right price. If he's at 6 million, 7 million, okay, I'm willing to, 7 million for 2 years. We'll renegotiate after the second year. Not 7 million for 2 years, but 7 million per year for 2 years. So 14 million over 2 years, something like that. Not a Zach Cunningham, $12 million a year deal that he got with the Rams. I like Matt Milano a lot. I think he brings an edge to this defense when he's out there, and I think he does help Bills middle linebacker Tremaine Edmonds, and we know that Edmonds has had some slip-ups, this season. He's had a little bit of a regression in certain aspects of the game. So, yeah, it's the big question right now, I think, in their offseason. They crossed one question off with Trey White, even though his contract wasn't out. They wanted to extend him, prioritize him, and make that a reality. Now, the question that's kind of staring them in the face as far as who to re-sign for the immediate future, Matt Milano. And I think you got to be a little bit realistic if you're Milano and say, hey, it's a contract year. Unfortunately, I lost some money this year.
Yeah, I think you nailed it on the head. He needs to be realistic. And I think that what does it come down to? It's going to be a dash of him being realistic, and it might be a dash of how much does he want to play for Buffalo. And if they can find a way to make that work, I think Buffalo, like you said, he's a 5th round pick. They took a chance on him. They wound up grooming him into one of the better players at the position. Is there loyalty there? Perhaps. And if they're able to work it out and saying, listen, man, you really haven't been able to play a full season since we've taken you on. We'd love to keep you around, but we can't justify paying you top dollar. That needs to be the conversation, and I hope it goes the right way because I'd hate to lose him, but I would understand under certain circumstances if they had to move on based on the injuries. But while we're talking numbers, I'd be nuts not to ask you what gets lost in the weeds here, man. I mean, we're talking Josh Allen contract here. I mean, and this is something that I think is a crazy, crazy topic because every year the bar seems to get raised as far as what these quarterbacks are getting paid. And it's starting to get to the point where it's literally unbelievable. And the contract Patrick Mahomes signed set the bar not only for quarterbacks in the NFL, but really for sports and what a player like that is capable of earning. The crazy thing about this contract situation is it's not only Josh Allen who's up for a contract, but it's Lamar Jackson. And then God knows where Sam Darnold's going to wind up and what does he wind up getting paid.
What about Josh Rosen?
Well, Josh Rosen, is he still making minimum wage at whatever fast food joint he's working at? I don't know. Is he contract negotiating over at Burger King? I don't know. I haven't checked in on it.
Yeah, I want to find one of those Josh Rosen lovers. They disappeared quick.
Oh, and sure. I was one of them who wanted him going into the draft, and that disappeared in 10 seconds. Thank God.
Hey, at least you admit it, though.
Oh God, dude, I admitted it a week later. I'm like, what in God's name was I thinking about? Jesus Christ. But all right, so Mahomes gets So are we in agreement here that Allen, if the season goes, I think at the very least, if they make the playoffs, even if they lose in the first round, you got to think a contract is negotiated at the end of the year with the way Allen played, correct?
I would say so. They might not be in a rush to it, but it's kind of like what I referred to with Trey White, knowing that he's that big of a deal to this
Yeah.
team, and obviously Josh Allen's the biggest piece of this team. He's the quarterback, he's the leader, and obviously he's taken those steps. So I would hope that the Bills brass comes together and says, let's get these discussions started now.
Yes.
Why waste time? Why push it down the road, kick the can? But this is an awesome discussion because I've watched a lot of Allen's interviews this year. He did an interview on Good Morning Football. They love him.
Yep.
The Evan Schrager's and Nate Burleson and Kay Adams. Shout out to Kay Adams. She just followed me on Twitter. It was like the greatest day of my life.
Nice.
Yeah,
I love those guys. They have a great show. It's fun.
They
it's
do.
Different,
It's awesome. I like Kyle Brandt and all those guys. The fact that they had Josh Allen on the show. And Josh Allen is asked about Pat Mahomes' contract. They asked him, what did you think of Mahomes getting this big deal? And he, like a laser focus, didn't even smirk, didn't smile, didn't laugh. He said, it means I have to work a lot harder. And that was just like,
I love him.
That's Josh Allen right there.
Yeah,
I mean, what a saint of a man. Yeah. I can't say enough good things about this guy, and he was the guy that I really did want Josh Allen. I specifically remember a lot of battles I had in comment sections on Facebook about the 2018 draft class. People wanted Lamar, some people wanted Darnold, a lot of people wanted Mayfield. I wanted Josh Allen for the city of Buffalo and for the Buffalo Bills, and what a giant box. I mean, he checks off all the boxes, but the biggest box that he checked off was the one that needed to be for the last 20 years of this franchise. True franchise quarterback in every sense of the word.
Absolutely. So the reason Jim Kelly, Thurman Thomas, and Andre Reed, all those guys, the reason they still are as prominent in Buffalo as they are today is not only because of how great their teams were, it's because nobody's been good since them. Nobody took the place. I mean, They have been able to stay on the Mount Rushmore of Buffalo. Not that they wouldn't regardless, but the reason nobody ever thought to replace them with anybody in the public eye is because there was nobody to replace them with. Josh Allen, in every sense of the position, is a franchise quarterback, a leader, and he defines Buffalo to the nth degree. He's a blue-collar farm dude who works his ass off. He had no offers at all. Right. Guy plays at Wyoming. Nobody believed in him. He was the guy coming into the draft who had the most questions, the highest ceiling and the lowest floor. And what does he do? He comes out and he's probably, and I stand by this, he is the best quarterback in that draft class as of right now. I
would say so. Yeah. I honestly, I think he is the best all-around quarterback that draft had in terms Absolutely. Of, I know Lamar can run, but Lamar can't throw like Josh can.
Lamar has been figured out.
Right.
I think the Baltimore Ravens have been figured out.
Yeah, and Darnold can't move like Allen. Darnold can't throw like Allen. Do I even have to mention Josh Rosen? I mean,
no, Baker not unless you're ordering a number 8 or something like that.
Baker Mayfield. I mean, Baker Mayfield is not my cup of tea. Yeah, I'll just put it that way. Personality wise, he just doesn't check off.
Polar opposite of Josh Allen.
Right, and sometimes that's okay. Sometimes that works. But for Buffalo, for me, what I wanted for this city and for this team, it's like. The whole from Kelly to Allen narrative of that episode that I did was the end-all be-all question: was Josh Allen worth the wait? Was he worth
Absolutely.
It shouldn't even be a question. Like Bills and putting it in that perspective, it's like holy crap, we went through A to Z to get Josh Allen the gold at the end of the rainbow. You're damn right it was worth it.
And you want to know what's even crazier? It's almost better in a way because Jim Kelly despised coming to Buffalo, and it took him years to come around to the city. Josh Allen, with open arms, embraced it immediately. He's loved it since the day he's come in and had nothing but nice things to say. The other day, he was quoted saying he would basically do anything in a way to find a way to play his entire career here. And the love is reciprocated back. We are damn near $1 million in donations to that children's hospital on behalf of Josh Allen's grandmother. There is no fan base like the Bills fan base, and there's no fan base, I think, who loves their quarterback more than the Bills, and it's only been 3 years, and he hasn't even won a playoff game yet. That's where we're at. So I think it is and you take everything into perspective. I don't think there's anybody right now that you could even argue would replace Josh Allen and would be worth even considering, moving on as opposed to not talking about a contract extension. But then that's where the interesting questions come in, right? Because Patrick Mahomes is 10 year, $503 million. Allen has not done anything to earn that right yet. Patrick Mahomes is probably going to win his second MVP. He should have 2 Super Bowl rings. The Patriots should have lost to them. The overtime rules in the NFL are terrible, but I digress.
D4 jumps off sides.
Yeah, like it's classic Brady. You get one thing go your way, and there it is, another one. But he's the best. I mean, I'm not kidding you. If Patrick Mahomes retired today, I think he'd probably still be a Hall of Famer. That's how transcendent this guy is. Allen, of course, is not that, but who is? So you have to take that into perspective. Before Patrick Mahomes, the highest paid quarterback in the NFL was Kirk Cousins. We have to be transparent here in saying Allen has deserved a payday. If these guys are getting paid, Allen deserves to get paid. But how much, I don't know. How many years, I don't know. But I'm really interested to see who winds up getting the longer contract extension and who winds up getting paid more. Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen, and which one over that amount of time winds up being the one that was worth the money. I think that is a very interesting scenario out of that draft class, because look what happened. Josh Allen went this way this year. Lamar went this way. And last year was a complete opposite trend of what these two got going on now. And what do you want to see? You want to see your quarterback rise, not dip. Have we already seen the best that Lamar Jackson has to offer? So there's so many questions here, Ryan. It's such an interesting topic.
It's a great topic. And I mean, would you be willing, if you are the Baltimore Ravens, or just take it, I guess you could say, just football wise, just throwing a football question out there. Yeah. Would you be willing to throw Lamar Jackson hundreds of millions of dollars? Obviously, a lot of that would be guaranteed for a guy that doesn't protect himself. Like, I mean, I think I could see him getting hurt. I could see him having an 8-year solid career in this league. I know Allen doesn't really protect himself as well as I'd like sometimes, but he's 6'5", 240. Yep. Lamar Jackson, I don't even know what Lamar Jackson weighs, but he's a not
featherweight for sure.
He's a featherweight. Yeah, he's a featherweight, and I think it's a very interesting, debate to have, because I think Jackson is he's great in his own way, but I don't see him having a 15, 17-year career in the National Football League.
The biggest issue for Lamar Jackson, he cannot win from behind. He does not have a win in his career where he's trailing after half. They can't do it. Whereas Josh Allen has 12 in the fourth quarter alone. If it weren't for the other night, he has 11. Right. I mean, the dude is not only fantastic and has one of the best balls in the game. It's not an argument anymore. Josh Allen is top 5 clutch quarterbacks in the NFL, and that's what gets it done. Brady wouldn't have 6 rings if it wasn't for him getting it done in crunch time, nor would a lot of these future Hall of Fame quarterbacks. That's what pays you the money. Patrick Mahomes is one of them. Who else would you rather have in a 2-minute drill? But you could make the argument you'd want Josh Allen. I think Lamar Jackson would be the last quarterback I'd probably want in that situation, because he's never done it. And he can't do it. And as good as they were last year, 14-2, they go out and lay an egg in the playoffs, something that nobody saw coming.
One of the worst performances I've ever seen. And to be honest, the fact that he got on this Madden cover, we'll go back to it. The fact that he got on the Madden cover, I know he had a great year, but you get on the Madden cover and you get the MVP award when you go one and done at home to the Tennessee Titans and Ryan Tannehill.
I know, man. It was shocking, because last year, I think the Bills D played the Baltimore Ravens better than anybody did all last year. It was in a losing effort. But if you remember, up until then, nobody could figure out the Ravens at all. The Bills just were not capable of scoring much last year, and that was one of those games where they had a final drive to win it. They couldn't do it. But the Bills D was one of the only teams last year, if not the only one up until that playoff game, to really figure out the Ravens. That's why they were so good, and that's why Lamar Jackson was so successful. Teams have now had an entire year, if basically 2 years, of watching this guy and how that offense operates. They just lost to New England the other night, Ryan. That's a team who should have lost to the Jets 2 weeks back. I mean, and they got destroyed by the Chiefs too. I mean, and I'm talking like bad. They look really bad.
That is the only reason why I have a 1 in the loss column in my fantasy football league. I have Lamar for fantasy, and Lamar played really, really bad that night.
I think he had 98 really yards. Yeah, that's how bad it was.
And that was literally like, I would say he should have finished with like 75. Like the remaining 21 were like in garbage time. It was one of the worst performances I've seen, and that says a lot because we've watched a lot of bad quarterback play as Bills fans over the years. Not throwing anybody under the bus, but I just can't believe that people there is a small group out there that think that Josh Allen is like overrated now. They think that I've seen it on some of these Facebook groups. I'm saying to myself,
I have too. Yeah,
I don't get it. I don't get it, man.
It's interesting to me, though. What do you do if you're the Ravens and you lose in the first round of the playoffs again? Because 1, you're probably not going to go want to find another quarterback. But 2, how the hell do you justify throwing, like you said, hundreds of millions of dollars at a player who we think we might have seen the best of already, who has now proven he cannot win a playoff game and has proven numerous times he cannot win from behind? I don't know how you build your franchise around that. I think that Lamar Jackson's future legitimately hinges on him winning a playoff game this year. And it's weird. Last year, I'd say that up until the playoffs, the Baltimore Ravens were the best team in the NFL. This year, I think if the Bills played him this week, they'd beat him, and I think they'd beat him with ease. I don't have an issue with the Ravens anymore.
Right. Yeah, I'm not afraid of the Ravens, and I think losing Mark Ingram for the majority of this season, Lamar needs a run game. Lamar's not a player that could throw 49 times a game like Josh Allen just did against the Arizona Cardinals. He's not a guy that can go drive for drive with, some of the – he can't – I mean, the thought of going drive for drive with Pat Mahomes, if you're Lamar Jackson, he has failed royally at doing so. Epically, he's failed so far. Whereas Allen has been able to play to the best. The worst games that Allen has played in are pretty much all against New England, which says to me that Bill Belichick's the genius. He's found a way to put a spy on him and force him to throw from the pocket. I'll take that. I'll take my quarterback's worst games being against the Patriots, over anyone else. I'll take that.
All young quarterbacks' first games are against Bill Belichick. His record against quarterbacks in their first 3 years would blow your mind. And actually, the other day on Coward was making an argument for Lamar Jackson, and it was a decent one. The Bills won against the Patriots. The Ravens lost. But the stat line for Lamar and Josh Allen was basically identical against the Patriots. And I think that is exactly due to what you just said. And it's just, I think Bill Belichick is able to find ways to make young quarterbacks uncomfortable. It's no secret. But I just think when you're looking at these two guys, the way they're trending, Josh Allen is trending up. Lamar Jackson is stagnant, if not trending down. But I'm trying to think right now what I would be comfortable paying Josh Allen a year and how long I'd want to sign him for. And it's such an odd question because you're really going to have to do it, and you have no idea what it'll do down the line. It's just something you're going to have to do.
I think he deserves $25 to $35 million a year.
Yeah, that sounds about right, doesn't it?
That's what Deshaun Watson's deal. Did he get paid a little too much? Bill O'Brien was in charge. The guy that wrote that deal got fired, for other reasons. But that's kind of interesting, right? The fact that the guy that wrote that deal, made that deal happen, was shortly thereafter fired. I know that's not happening in Buffalo. Sean McDermott's here to stay. He's on a 6-year extension. You'd like to think that maybe they give him, a 7-8 year deal, 25 upwards to 30 as of like year 3, then 30 to 35 the remaining years after that. I think he's earned that, to be honest. I think that's fair, and whatever happens after that happens.
Here's the current highest paid quarterbacks. Mahomes is at 45. Watson, which you hit it on the head, man. It's a bit much. He's 39, and I don't know if he's $6 million shy of Patrick Mahomes. I just don't know about that.
Or more than Allen for that matter.
I agree with you, especially with the lack of talent in Houston too. I mean, you're going to pay him all that money and give him absolutely nothing to work with, and then take away his best player. I don't know. I mean, Jesus. That Russell Wilson's at 35, Roethlisberger 34, Rodgers 33.5. But look at Jared Goff's making $33.5 million a year. I would take Josh Allen over Jared Goff a million out of a million times and wouldn't think twice about it.
Right.
So with 33.5 going to Goff, I really think that 25 might be too cheap. I don't know if there's a way with doing that, but I do think that if you can get 28 to 30 being what I think probably winds up happening. Although I got to see what happens in the playoffs. If the Bills can just get over the hump and win a playoff game, I think 30 or more might be in question. But I do think 25 would probably be the low end of it. But then it also matters how many years are you going to go with. And I'm guessing they're going to want to go as far as they can. I'm guessing they're going to want to lock him down for as long as they possibly can. So if they did do 25 million, though, that would be half Patrick Mahomes' contract. So
I think it'd probably be more towards 28 to 30. I mean, 25 would be right,
doesn't it?
Yeah, that sounds fair. I mean, 25 for the first year would be like, if you're kind of jumping a little bit, he goes from 25 to 28 his second year, then 29, then 30, 31, and then 35 the remaining years. Structure wise, I kind of like to look at contracts like that because that really is how they're structured nowadays. It's really hard to find a contract that's the same amount of money each season. Usually it's front loaded or back loaded.
Exactly. And when you look at that $30 million mark around that area, Josh Allen is better than every single one of these quarterbacks. Matt Ryan, Dak Prescott, Carson Wentz, Kirk Cousins, and Jared Goff. Though Matt Ryan's on the low end at 30 million, Jared Goff's on the high end, tied for fifth in the NFL at 33.5 million. Josh Allen is better than all of those quarterbacks. So, I mean, 30 might be the low end, Ryan. They'd be lucky to get anything lower than 30, I think, because if I'm Josh Allen's agent, all I do is I lay that sheet of paper out on the table that I just read off to you, and I'm like, are you going to sit here and tell me that he is not as good as the A, B, C, D, and G here or whatever here? Like there's no way. So
honestly, I would be more than happy with giving him 35. I think the world of Josh Allen, and I always have. I mean, it's really nice to see his progression in year 3 because that's like the year that you expect a quarterback to progress. But the fact that he has grown leaps and bounds from year 1 to year 2, year 2 to year 3. 2 years ago, he's a completely different quarterback than he is today. What is it going to look like 2 years from now? What is it going to look like what is it going to look like 4 years from now, 6 years from now? He is going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the National Football League. Those guys that you mentioned, Matt Ryan, he won't even be in the league in 3-4 years.
A lot of those guys
those I mean, Roethlisberger, Aaron Rodgers might not be in the league in 3-4 years. He might not even be playing for Green Bay next year. I mean,
I don't think he ends his career in Green Bay. I that's a good point. I don't think
I don't either.
And this is Matt Ryan's last year in Atlanta. I guarantee it. So
that's what I was just about to say too. I don't know if this is Matt Ryan's last year in Atlanta, and if it gets ugly in Houston, Deshaun Watson's going to be like, "What the hell am I doing here?"
Your point, though, you just made is the exact reason why no matter what happens this year, it is so unbelievably exciting to be a Bills fan because we have not seen Josh Allen's ceiling, and I don't think we've even seen it come close. No. The jump from last year to this year, I don't think anybody thought it was going to be that large, and I seriously think that it could only get better with experience. And I mean,
that's the only thing that's missing.
Yes, exactly.
Yep.
And you got to think it only gets better. And I don't know, man. I mean, we were just talking about, I really think I've seen the best of Lamar Jackson. I don't know if I've seen the best of Sam Darnold just because of the circumstances he's in, but I do know skill set speaking, he doesn't touch Josh Allen. I think I've seen the best of Baker Mayfield. I don't see that panning out. I really don't. Obviously, Josh Rosen off in the distance serving fries somewhere. So I mean, you look at him, man, and like I
what a jerk that guy is.
You
Really,
know, like, well,
I have to throw that out there.
you
He gets
almost
picked. He gets picked 10th, and he's like 9 teams or 11th. 10 teams made a mistake. Did they? No, they did not. No,
I
they did
guess it,
not.
I guess it depends on what outlook you look on it, though, because is he maybe not the luckiest guy of all time? He's a top 10 draft pick who gets paid to go to numerous different teams, and now he's just sitting at home on a Zoom call pretending to be a coach. Like, what is this? How do I get that job?
He was sitting in the crowd watching Tom Brady.
Saw that. Unbelievable.
58-year-old Tom. I'm obviously over exaggerating. 43-year-old Tom Brady just dinking and man. I
How
mean,
demoralizing must it be, though, to get drafted by the Cardinals? The next year they move off of you, and your replacement is on pace to potentially win the MVP this year. I mean, that's just like, but you want to know what? Unbelievable move by Arizona to have the gusto to say, you know what? This ain't going to work. We're moving off of it within 1 year. Who does that? Nobody does
that. Yeah.
And it couldn't have worked better. And you got Cliff Kingsbury, who's never coached a game before this year, and all of a sudden they're winning the division. So I don't know, man.
Josh Rosen must have shown them something that they didn't like. And I'm saying off the field. Yeah. I really think there was a lot. His own college coach said he'd draft Sam Darnold or Josh Allen over him. That made me think, oh, yeah. Wow. That made me. Jim Mora Jr. said there are things in his game that not every coach can coach that guy, meaning, if he throws an interception, he's chewing everybody out. He doesn't blame things on himself. Josh Allen, on the other hand, he's fumbled. He's fumbled a lot. He runs over to the sideline. He's looking at why the hell did he fumble? Who did he not see running from behind him? Yeah. Sam Darnold has been dealt a shit hand. I will say that on the show. He's been dealt a horrible hand. He needs to be traded. He needs to leave. He needs to move on. Go to the Colts. Go with Frank Reich. Go with Sean Payton.
Go to the NFC. I want nothing to do with it. Yeah.
Go to the NFC, please. That's fine. But yeah, and no excuses. Where I just see excuses just written on Josh Rosen's boring face. I mean, just
you know what vibe he gave me? He gave me an Aaron Rodgers vibe with none of the talent. See, Aaron Rodgers is cool and can be cocky and stuff because he's a Hall of Famer. And I don't usually like that about people. I really like that about Aaron Rodgers because that's who he is. He is just that dude, and he's that good. So it's cool. But like you mentioned, when you said Baker Mayfield's not my cup of tea and Josh Rosen's in that realm, it's because off the field, they're kind of pompous and arrogant, and they're not good on the field. So
they haven't earned it yet.
Exactly.
They haven't earned anything. Why Cleveland's had 3 different head coaches since Baker Mayfield stepped on the premises of their organization, and Josh Rosen's played for 3. He gets benched. He gets thrown the door. They shove him out the door for Kyler Murray. That's one thing. You get the opportunity to go to Miami on draft night. They trade you. You're competing with Ryan Fitzpatrick. I love Fitzy, but if Josh Rosen was this end-all be-all future franchise quarterback, Fitz wouldn't have stood a chance in that battle. If Rosen checked off every box, and he didn't. He didn't.
Clearly, because Fitz was on a tear, and they said, all right, enough's enough, we're putting 2 in.
Yeah.
Which at the time, I thought it was the dumbest move I had seen in a while because of how well they're playing 3-0. I mean, how about all that going on, man? Yeah. I mean, just when you think, dude,
there's magic going on.
3 weeks ago, the betting odds for the Dolphins to win the odds or to win the East was like, I think plus 7,000. And now they're a win this week against a Drew Lock-less Broncos team from just being the tiebreaker head-to-head away from being completely tied with us. It is nuts.
That is a little sickening, I will say. But, I try to look at things. I used to look at things from a fan perspective. Since I've had the show the last 5 years, I like to look at things from a football perspective rather than a fan. I mix the fan, but, try to put the football perspective in it as well. No bias. And I have to say, one of the best head coaches in the National Football League is Brian Flores. He does not get the credit that he nearly deserves. He doesn't get any. I don't hear anyone talk about the job that he's done as far as picking the defense, what areas, what players did they need. They spent a boatload of money on defense, and it paid off. Their defense has been fantastic. I think they might have – Buffalo should have a better defense than them. They've underperformed. But to date, over the whole total of the season, Miami's defense, I think, has been the best in the AFC East. I can't
Yes.
believe I'm saying that. But
Have you seen their point differential? It is like 5 touchdowns better than the Bills. It's unbelievable.
crazy.
Their defense has been great, and dude, it is amazing. I predicted them to finish second in the AFC East this year. I thought they were going to be better than the Patriots. But what amazes me is a team last year who you could legitimately argue was tanking is now a game away from being tied atop the East, with tied for the third best record in the AFC. I can't believe it, and that is why I don't even think it'll be close this year. Brian Flores will win Coach of the Year, and it's very deserving. I think it's pretty cool, though, man. The Patriots are down and out, and we have the old school 90s back where it's Dolphins, Bills fighting it out, and it could come down to the last game of the year. I mean, man, and the cool thing about that is, like, back in the day, it was Marino and Kelly, and it was this juggernaut matchup. Like, if it winds up being like, I mean, think about what could happen in the AFC East, right? Mm-hmm. The Patriots will have a new quarterback soon. The Jets are probably going to draft Trevor Lawrence. And then you have Josh Allen and Tua. That is a brand new division. And it really could shape up to be the way things were back in the day, where it's like an unbelievable AFC regime of incredible young talent. It's super fun and exciting to look forward to, man.
You got to throw in there too, the whole, you touched on it, the whole take with Jim Kelly, not wanting to be here. Yep. Jim Kelly didn't just pass up the Buffalo Bills one time. He actually was meant to play on 2 USFL teams.
Yes.
Not many people realize that. Like when that whole thing went down, the league was falling apart. The owner of the Houston Gamblers sold the contract to Donald Trump, the owner of the New Jersey Generals at the time. And it was this close to being Kelly, Flutie, Herschel Walker on one team. So it's, the fact that we're at that point where we can go back and kind of see parallels as well from yesteryear to today as far as the Bills and Dolphins. That's like the one thing that Bills and Dolphins fans are happy to agree on, is that both teams are set pretty well for the future. Miami's got 2 first-round picks this year, and I think 2 first-round picks next year as well.
And they have Houston's, which will be a top 10. So
right. So, I mean, Miami is pretty well stacked for the future, and that stinks as Bills fans, but they put themselves in this position. They sold hard and they paid a lot for certain guys, so I'm excited about thinking of the future with possibly Lawrence, Patriots new quarterback, Tua in Miami, Allen obviously in Buffalo, and we go back to when the Bills won the AFC East for the first time since the last time. If they win it this time, it's the first time since 1995. The Colts were in our division at that time, and they're not even in the division anymore.
Isn't that the greatest stat ever? Like the most depressing thing you've ever heard. Because the like that is insane. Like really, like people don't remember.
Manning wasn't even in the league yet.
No, it's hilariously sad. I mean, it's unbelievable. That's why if the Dolphins do find a way, like I know I mentioned earlier, it wouldn't be the end of the world because of the home playoff game situation and everything, but it would just be like in the way that the Cardinals game ended. It would be in the way the season ended for the Bills. The year that the Patriots were bottom feeders and the Bills were on a tear, that after a year where we thought a team was tanking in the Dolphins, they come out of nowhere with a rookie quarterback and steal it. So I'm just praying to God, even if it comes down to that last game, that the Bills just find a way to not let that happen, because it would just be like classic, man. It would be
classic Buffalo. I hate to say it, but well, Zach, this was an awesome show. You're probably one of my favorite guests I've ever had on the show. A lot of laughs,
man. Yeah,
a lot of poking fun at Josh Rosen, which I'm always down for that. He's such an easy target.
He wants to come out and defend himself. He can. I'll have a chat with him. Whatever.
I highly doubt he will.
Well, he's got the free time. Maybe he will. Who knows?
Maybe he will. Everyone's like, I still believe that guy could be good. I'm like, whether he's good on the field, something's not right off the field. That's the problem.
Before you let me go, someone the other day, I forget who it was in the national media, but they ranked him higher than Daniel Jones on their quarterback power rankings. I forgot who it was, but it's the reason. Funny you just said that, because there are people out there who who legitimately think that dude is still like capable of being one of the better younger quarterbacks, and it's just hilarious.
I honestly think like by now you would think that Rosen had the reality check with himself, the reality check of, well, what is it that I did that didn't work in Arizona? What is it that I did that didn't work in Miami? This guy still thinks he was robbed of opportunities. Like with that, it's a mindset thing.
Sure. 100%.
Like you have to understand why these teams let you go, why they moved on. It's like when someone gets fired, you have to kind of take a look in the mirror and say, well, maybe I didn't do my best job. Did I do my best? He didn't do his best, and I don't know when he will or if he ever will with a mentality like that.
I don't know. I'd be honestly shocked to see if we see him again. I really would. Yeah. I don't know who's taking a chance on him again. I think we've seen what he's going to bring to the table, and I think it's just mediocrity, and I think it's kind of an issue. I don't think anybody wants to take that burden on, but we'll see.
He's a member of the Tampa Bay Bucs organization as a practice squad guy. Maybe Bruce Arians tries to revive his career at some point, but I just don't know why. I mean, with Tom Brady playing like he is, I don't see him, retiring. Maybe in 2 years he retires, but I think Tom still looks great, and I think it'll be interesting to see what happens.
What is it with Bruce Arians, by the way, and just having an unbelievable desire to revitalize everybody's career? I mean, they got like 4 or 5 guys on that team that he's just trying to resurrect from the dead. It's unbelievable.
Antonio Brown being one of them, who is in somewhat hot water again.
I just stole a video every week. I back to our point earlier about getting a wide receiver that was solidified and whatever. Maybe the best thing that's happened to the Bills in recent years is him not coming here, because that would have just been a damn disaster.
Oh, thank God.
I mean, that dude. And I don't understand Brady's infatuation with him. It is the opposite of who Tom Brady is. I guess opposites attract. I do not understand. He is living in Tom Brady's house.
I know. It's very odd.
I don't get it, man.
I don't get it. I wouldn't trust him, like, just in general with all the stuff that he's done. I think there needs to be a reality check there as well. And it seems like no reality check is good enough for that guy either. It's just
he's had 100
unfortunate. Yeah, he has. Well, Zach, man, this was awesome. I would love to have you on again. Yeah. Everybody that tuned into the show, thank you so much for tuning in. We got to a couple of the comments there. I saw Narciso Gomez said coaching, simple as that, as to why they lost against the Arizona Cardinals. We had some positive takes for Dane Jackson as well. He looked amazing. We touched on Dane Jackson. We touched on a lot of things, from the Bills beyond the bye, the Bills season, the remaining schedule, some poking fun, I guess you could say, at Josh Rosen lovers out there, and Josh Rosen himself. Zach, man, thanks so much for coming on. Everybody tune into his show. It's Bot Talks Bills, part of the Buffalo Fanatics. Shout out to those guys as well, Rico and Dave Tilton and Judge Mathis. I know a few of those guys pretty well, so keep up the great work, man.
Yeah, really Brian, appreciate it, man. This was awesome. The show's on Tuesday, so if you guys want to give it a listen every Tuesday, I'm either crying or I'm cheering. So either way, come join me after a win or a loss. It's fun.
Right. Sorry to interrupt you. That's the life of a Bills podcaster right there.
You kidding me? Although I gotta say, it's either way, it's fun to enjoy the win on the show. But it's like, especially last week, man. Like this was my therapy session. I just sat here by myself, and I looked at the dash, and there had been 20 minutes that had gone by where I had just not stopped talking about that play. So it's nice. It's nice to have.
It was my highest rated show all season long. So
perfect. I'm sure
happy about that.
Misery loves company, Ryan. You know the drill.
Thanks a lot, Zach. Thank you so much for hopping on, and we'll get you back on soon.
Awesome, brother. Appreciate it. Looking forward to it. And thanks again.
Thanks again. Take care. That was Zach of Bot Talks Bills. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. Ryan Thomas wrapping things up on the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. Ryan Thomas, yours truly, will be back on Sunday to discuss the Bills on the Bills pregame show next week, next Sunday. Not this Sunday, but next Sunday, recapping some of the games, some of the action, some fantasy football tidbits for everybody. I've greatly enjoyed having Zach on, discussing the game with him, and much, much more. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take care. Go Bills.